Morning, everybody. The Global Compact for Migration is set to be signed today in Marrakesh by Ahmed Hassan on Canada's behalf. And here's the petition to sign. If you do not want that to happen, you can sign at the top or sign at the bottom and see how many signatures we've collected. We're at about 55,000. You can join the conversation on CanadaPoly.com. We have forums and we're talking about Canadian politics. So if that sounds amazingly fun to you, come on and join us. We'd love to have you. I wanted to show you the UK's petition as well. They've got one. It's official. It's a petition.parliament.uk, and they've got 123,000 signatures. So it's not just us that are upset about this, and it's not just our government that are ignoring the petition. They will sign today, it appears. Here is something that I found interesting. So I came across this tweet, and I dug into it because it's very important. It says, maybe the Parisian French are not chronic cowards after all. Maybe our PM knows exactly what trouble, Soros chaos he's inviting. EVIL, evil. And there's a link to a Scribd article attributed to General Martinez, who is a French general. And I thought, I would love to report this as fact, but I've got to double check and make sure that this is real. And I found out it is as legitimate as I can call it. This appears to be General Martinez's Twitter, and the very top pinned tweet is the same letter. And so here's the general, and here's the link. And this was originally in French, and I asked Google Translate to translate, but this is the same as this. So I'm just going to read this one, but links to all of this will be in the description. So this is regarding the Global Compact for Migration, and this is a high-level French general who is expressing deep concerns, or if you listen to our government, conspiracy theories. Maybe he's reading the rebel media. Is that what's happening? He's reading the rebel media and he's getting really upset about French sovereignty? That's interesting. Okay, so it says, General Martinez asked us to publish this letter addressed to the President of the Republic, asking him to renounce the signing of the Global Compact on Migration, signed by a former minister and a dozen generals and admirals. Paris, December 7th, 2018. Mr. President, you are about to sign the Global Compact on Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration on 10 and 11 December, which establishes a genuine right to migration. It may impose itself on our national legislation through pre-existing treaties or the principle of common responsibility set out in this pact. It seems to us that the only sovereignty that will remain with France will consist in freely setting the way in which the objectives of the pact will have to be implemented. You cannot give up this new part of the national sovereignty without public debate, whereas 80% of the French population consider that it is necessary to stop or regulate drastically the immigration. By deciding alone to sign this pact, you would add an additional reason for revolt to the anger of an already battered people. You would be guilty of a denial of democracy or treason against the nation. In addition, the finances of our country are drained and our debt is growing. You cannot take the risks of an expensive call for air migration without first showing that you will not have to resort to more taxes to meet the objectives of the pact. On the other hand, you must be able, in terms of security, to curb the consequences linked to the arrival of extra European populations. That means extra European is not European populations. Finally, you cannot ignore the very essence of politics is to ensure security on the outside and harmony within. However, this concord can be obtained only if it maintains a certain internal coherence of the society alone capable of allowing to want to do together, which becomes more and more problematic today. In fact, the French state is late in coming to realize the impossibility of integrating too many people in addition to totally different cultures who have regrouped in the last 40 years in areas that no longer submit to the laws of the Republic. You cannot decide alone to erase our civilization landmarks and deprive us of our carnal homeland. We therefore ask you to defer the signing of this pact and call by referendum the French to vote on this document. You are accountable to the French for your actions. Your election is not blank. We support the initiative of General Martinez against the signature of this pact, which must be adopted by the member states of the UN at the Intergovernmental Conference of Marrakesh. General Martinez. Charles Millen, the former Minister of Defense, and General Bertucci. So I found that interesting, and again, I want to show you this is the general, and he's the General, 2nd Air Force, for France open to the world but faithful to its spiritual and cultural heritage, to transmit and proud of its history. Powerful. I think that could be addressed to our government. I think that could be addressed directly to Prime Minister Trudeau. Our taxes are increasing. Our debt is increasing. And yet we're being told this is good for us and they will sign. It is terrible for us. They shouldn't sign. CTV Power Play asked a question on December 5th. Should Canada sign the national or the United Nations Compact on Migration? And overwhelming 86% said no. No. Emphatically no. So this is not the end today. If they sign, when they sign, this is not the end. I think this is the beginning. This is the beginning of protests. This is the beginning of the response to this. And the Yellow Jacket protests in France didn't start out the way we saw them, and we're seeing them now. They started small, they started local, they started with people who were fed up with listening to the government. And do I think that there are enough people awake right now to do that on a grand scale? Not yet. Not yet in Canada, but that doesn't mean we submit. Part of the Yellow Jacket protest was awareness, right? Educating the public to what's going on. There are generals, highly placed Western generals, who are drawing attention to sovereignty and cost of this. And I did a video in depth twice about how much this costs. We have spent $500 million unbudgeted in 1 year, the 2017-18 year. It's $340 million to process these people. That's federal processing costs. That's judges and all of that stuff, all of those costs. That doesn't include the $200 million just for Ontario. That doesn't include Quebec. And that's $540 million. That's $500 million. Do you know in 2018, the budgeted cost for illegal immigrants was $173 million over 2 years? We are bankrupting ourselves. We are allowing this government to bankrupt us. Why? They do not have any kind of mandate to give our sovereignty to the United Nations. And they have no standing to call this a conspiracy theory when many, many countries around the world are pulling out of this compact. And I'll talk about that later, but there are now 12 countries that are pulling out, and major highly placed generals saying this is bad for France, this is bad for Canada, this is bad for Europe, this is bad for everybody but the UN, who has the UN 2030 agenda, and they want to move all sorts of people into the West. But if you watch the immigration and Gumballs video that I showed you yesterday, you know that we can never outpace the birth rate. It doesn't matter how many people we import to the West, we can never get ahead of the amount of people they're replacing them with, right? They're having babies. They're having a lot more babies. And maybe instead of having an immigration policy that is replacement focused in Canada and the West, we should start incentivizing our kids to have babies. Canadians were sold multiculturalism as something that would enhance our society. And in the last year, the way the Liberals are trying to implement this crazy migration pact has been expensive and disastrous. We've had more terrorist attacks in Canada, and ridiculous 42 kilograms of fentanyl is enough to kill 50 million people. The population of Canada is 37 million people. And that was called drug trafficking. Unbelievable. So we are handing our security over. We are handing our tax dollars over. And we are getting nothing but instability and terrorist attacks for it. Is this what we want to pay our tax dollars for? The Trudeau government is, in the French general's words, guilty, or you would be guilty, of a denial of a democracy or treason against the nation. I believe that to be very, very true. Our government is not representing us. Our government is lying to us and paying the press to lie to us. And our government is going to sign this document, regardless of what we do today. So plans need to be for the future, and they need to be organic and local. I don't have any official protests. The CPC has not come out with anything. The PPC has not come out with anything. The Liberals are telling the journalists to make sure everybody believes this is great. It's a very interesting time to be alive. Very scary. Scary for my kids. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.